So, a funny sidebar before I start this, I actually recorded this entire thing, and it was 15 minutes. And then when I closed out of the recording camera thing, it didn't record. So, that could be attributed to the Mercury retrograde that's going on right now, but I'm not going to 100% blame it on that because I could have simply closed down the camera thing the wrong way. And that's actually a really interesting point to start off on when I'm talking about what to do and what not to do with astrology. So, let me take a step back for a second and brainstorm. Yeah. So, astrology in itself can be a very interesting influence or a way of looking at the world. But the point is how much you let it influence you and how much you work with it in order to work around with life. So, yeah, coffee. Anyone calls this a substitute, they can unsubscribe. But you won't. Yeah. So, let's take, for example, Mercury retrograde, right? I'm going to sit back down here. Mercury retrograde, which we are in right now, can disrupt things such as communication, commerce, things with money, business, and other things like that. Now, does that mean that during Mercury retrograde, everything in the world is going to go to shit in terms of your car, in terms of business, in terms of communications with other people? No. The planets and their movements create an influence on how we act and how we interact with the world in the same way that the weather outside influences what we have to wear, what we have to bring with us, how safely we have to drive, and might affect our plans. So, coffee. Astrology, at the very basics, is a way of looking through your birth chart at the influences on your personality at the time that you were born. So it can describe to you in really accurate detail, honestly, about how your personality was kind of influenced and shaped a little bit by the planets. So, me, for example, I'm an Aries Taurus cusp. So, and I think I have a Taurus rising, but I have the influences of Aries and Taurus. So, I am a very grounded person. I am a very organized person. I am somebody that likes order and likes everything to have its place, but I am also a very energetic person, and on occasion I can be very impulsive. And I can be kind of quick to jump at people in terms of getting a little fiery, a little grumpy. Now, does that mean I use it as an excuse for every single time that I gripe at somebody and I'm like, I can't help myself with that because I'm half Aries, so, if I have an attitude, just deal with it. No. Um, I'm trying to think of one of my influences. Okay, so for example, my foundation, my moon is a Capricorn. Now I actually have a family member that I interact with daily who is a Capricorn rising. So I am well aware of those kinds of influences. So, for example, the person that I have in my family that is a Capricorn rising is insanely good with business, insanely good, organized, knows how to handle money and all that stuff. It can also make them a little bit easy to jump the gun with their frustrations and such. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to deal with something from them and just be like, oh, they can't help it. They're a Capricorn rising, right? Your influences give you a snapshot of what can affect you in your everyday life. The same as me being a short person, I might have difficulty reaching for something, but I have to work and adapt with things in order to make them work for me. The same thing with my disability, right? Or my bent fingers and such. It influences how I have to interact with the world, but it is not an excuse to say, "Oh no, I can't do that." Or it's impossible for me to change. If I didn't say that I couldn't change what I was born with, for example, your birth chart in astrology, then you would get nowhere. There would be no personal growth. There would be no rising above the influences, and you could just ride through your everyday life, never working on anything and saying, "Oh, I can't change." The main point of life is to grow and change. So, let's get back into astrology, but I hope that analogy kind of helps here. So, with the different planetary influences of what is squaring what is conjunct with what, and what is in retrograde, and all these other things, they can affect you in the same way that the weather does. It means that when you interact with others and you step out into the world and you start doing things, or even in your own thoughts, there's more of a tendency, like in Mercury retrograde, for example, to have miscommunication or to have different things kind of get a little screwy or a little wonky. Everything from that email didn't get sent, that text didn't go through, to my engine light's on and I might want to check my car. Now, in terms of like these different things, it could be an internet outage at the time. Facebook could be down like it was last week. YouTube could be down like it was like, what, a month ago, something like that? Or you could have a faulty sensor in your car giving you a false engine light. Well, guess what? Those things, you might want to double check that email went in your sent folder. You might want to try to refresh the page and see if it actually works. You might want to actually get that engine light checked out rather than saying, "Oh, it's probably fine, it's just Mercury retrograde, whatever." Because these things, like an important email that was supposed to be sent, if it's not sent, stuff could get a little wonky, and it's your responsibility, or it might have been very important for someone to get that text. Or it could actually be something wrong with your car, and you might actually want to look into it before the engine light starts flashing on the road, your spark plugs go out, and you slow down to a halt. Astrology is a great way of understanding the different influences on you, but it's not an excuse. People can't go around and say that because of the way that this planet is on their chart, or how this planet is moving and it's affecting this on their chart, that's just the way it's going to be, and they can't do anything about it. In terms of Mercury retrograde or Mars retrograde, it's all away, or any planetary influence. It means taking a step back and looking at things through a different lens. In the same way that when there's snow on the ground and you have to drive, you need to increase your following distance. You need to brake sooner. You can't slam on your brakes. You need to pump your brakes. If it's still snowing, you might want to put your wipers on. At night, and I hate this when people don't do it, put your lights on. Right? Or, for God's sakes, all this stuff is great, but have you ever used your blinker when you're going to turn at a light? Just a thought, because if you haven't, one, you're from Boston. Probably. And two, use that little blinker. Okay? Use your blinker. And use your thinker, too. The point is that we have to work with these different influences, and it gives us an opportunity to really work and grow on things. If Mercury retrograde really affects you in terms of your communication and stuff, then you should be aware of, through metacognition, which means thinking about thinking, to increase your thought time before you say something, or to double check things, or to make sure that things work out, or maybe when you communicate with somebody, ask them for clarification so they understood what you meant, so there's no miscommunication. In terms of something like Mars retrograde, be very aware of your temper and how you feel inside before you speak up. Be aware that other people might be a little bit more touchy, so you might want to think before you act in terms of how you word things before you say it. And just be aware that different bumps in the road can come up. The same thing as when it's raining or snowing, you might want to wear a jacket. Although this doesn't count as a jacket, really. You might want to bring an umbrella. You might want to double check that your headlights or your fog lights work. You might want to replace your wipers. You got to be aware of the influences around you. I've seen plenty of people that just call themselves an Aries, a Capricorn, a Sagittarius, an Aquarius, whatever, and leave it at that. So we'll step into this here. Don't just go by what your rising sign is as your label. You are much more than just that one sign in terms of what day or month you were born under. And that being said, don't look at a horoscope just for whatever your birth sign is. You know, oh, I was born on this date, so this is the only thing that I look at, and I Google it real quick, or I have it on an app. Look at your entire chart. Get your entire chart made. There's tons of free websites. I think like Cafe Astrology or Chaos Astrology. You can input that stuff, and then you can get your entire birth chart, so you can see where the planets were in what houses under the influences of what signs, which can give you an idea of varying aspects of your personality. So like I have a lot of things in my 12th house. I think I know I have Pluto in there, right? And the 12th house is kind of like stuff that's behind your head, and it's like life lessons and such. And looking at that really helped to put a lot of things in perspective for me about like why I'm so into magic and spirituality and stuff. So it kind of helped explain that for me. Or my moon is in Capricorn, so my foundation can be very organized, very matter-of-factly to the point. So the bottom line is, in terms of my foundation and stuff, I might be a little pushy, I might be a little terse. I'm not very emotionally responsive to those things. So I've really had to work on being aware of my own reactions and my own interactions to better myself from that. So I don't say, oh, I'm extremely pushy because my moon is in Capricorn and that's it. Deal with it. No. It's the same thing as like if you had a bad home life growing up or whatever influence that you had. Like if you grew up with a messy house and you're okay with your house being messy, I mean, I don't care, and I'm on my soapbox right now, but regardless of what your home life is or what your situation is, there is always ways to rise above it. People have gone from absolute dirt poor to being super successful. People have had many different failings in life and have completely overcome them. From bad business stuff, not going to school, or addictions or things, and they've risen above them. My brother is completely financially set for his entire life, and he got his GED because high school didn't work out for him. Other people, high school doesn't work out for them, and they spend the whole rest of their life blaming everything else as to why stuff didn't work out. You can't blame everybody else for your lack of effort, and you can't blame your chart for your personality in the same way that you can't blame your home life for your personality. Do these things have an influence? Yes. Can you change it based on effort and understanding of who you are and what's going on around you? Yes. Astrology is a great thing that can really help explain a lot of things, and it really shows that there's a larger mechanic to the universe and the influence of the planets and the stars and stuff. Speaking of mechanics and the influences of those things, my book Magical Mechanics can kind of help you understand a bit of that in terms of influences and how to kind of work with them in a magical context or spiritual context, depending on whatever word you want to use. Trying to be much more open and less rigid, even though I have a Taurus rising. Get it? So, man, I wonder if I'm really bored one day. I could probably go through all of my videos and make a compilation of either of me saying so. It might be funny. Probably never get around to it though, because although I'm an Aries and I have these great ideas, sometimes I'm so focused with some of my other things by being a Taurus as well, because I'm an Aries-Taurus cusp, that I don't get around to things. Sometimes that happens, and I'm working on it because it's the influence of my chart, so it's a little hard, but I'm not going to make that an excuse. When I took this online astrology course, which was by Nightlight Astrology, which I suggest anybody take a look at if they really are interested in learning how influences of charts works and just the planets in general and what all the different interactions between the planets means. It's an online course. It's like once a week for a year. Nightlight Astrology. It's amazing, and like the guy that runs it is awesome. He says don't own your planets, basically meaning don't make them an excuse for your behavior. understand it as an influence rather than a there's nothing I can do about it. Astrology is really interesting, and I suggest that everybody should learn about it. But before I step too much into the what they should do or what you should do with astrology, I'm gonna end this video here. And next week, at the same day and time, is gonna be my what to do with astrology video. So let me know what you think about this. Drop stuff in the comments. Connect with me on any of my other social media stuff, all of which you can find the links to, including my email, at the end of this video. Good hunting.